Hello everyone, welcome to CS Academy. Today I am going to show you how to connect MySQL database in Spring Boot application by configuring data source file, and I will show you how to insert the rows of data into the table. Let's get started. Let's open your MySQL database. Look at here, I have created one database, employees. Inside this database, I have one table by the name employees. Inside the table, I have 4 columns: ID, name, age and salary. Inside that table, I have inserted 2 rows of data. Now I will write the Java code by creating the Spring Boot application to connect this table and insert the data into this table. Let's open your Spring Tool Suite. Now I will create one project here. To create a project, we need to go to this file, go to this new. Here you will get an option like Spring Starter Project. Click on this Spring Starter Project. Now I will give the project name as MySQLDB and group ID as com.example, artifact ID also MySQLDB, then version is 0.01, and then project description is demo project for the Spring Boot. If you want to give any description, you can give, otherwise you can leave as it is, and package name as com.example.demo. Now I will click on next. Here I need to select the dependencies. For my project I am going to select the web dependency. Then I need to connect MySQL, no? That's why I'm selecting MySQL driver, and then I need the JDBC API. Now I will click on this JDBC API. Now click on finish. Look at here, our project is getting created. It collecting the needed dependencies and it will give us project. See here, I got the project. When we got the project, we will get this project structure. Inside this source/main/java folder, we will be having one package called com.example.demo. Inside this package, we have the main method. Now I will create 2 more packages. Now inside this config package, I will create one class. This class is to configure the data source file. Now I will give this class name as dataSourceConfig @configuration, because I need to configure my data source here, so I am giving here @configuration. Inside this class, I will create 4 variables. I will give the variable name as username, password, driver and URL. Now I created 4 variables: username, password, URL and driver, to hold the username, password and driver name and all. For these variables, well, I will create getter and setter methods. Now go to the source and here click on generate getters and setters. Select all, then click on generate. Now I generated the getter and setters for the 4 variables. Now I will write one method over here to configure the HikaridataSource. This is because HikariCP is a connection pool which holds the connection. HikariCP is used to reuse the database connection. Creating the HikaridataSource object over here. To create the object, I am writing this HikaridataSource ds is equal to new HikaridataSource. Inside this method, I created one object of HikaridataSource. Using that reference, I am setting the data source class name, JDBC URL, password and username. After that, I am returning the this HikaridataSource reference. For this method, I am giving the @bin, and inside that bin, I am giving the name as the data source. After this, here I am writing the data source transaction manager method. This data source transaction manager method will return the data source transaction object. Inside this object I am passing the this method name, data source method name. For this method I am giving the @b. Look at here, I created the 4 variables, URL, username, password and all. For this variable I only created the getters and setter, but I still didn't set the values for these variables. To set the values, I need to go to this resource folder. Inside this resource folder, I need to go to this application.property file. Now I will set the values for the variables. Now I set the values for that variables, but inside the data source file I need to tell that it should take the properties from that application.property files, and I need to give the prefixes of the variables. So that I need to write the @configuration properties. Now this line will search for the prefix data source inside this application.property file, and that will begins with the datasource.url like that. That's why I gave the prefix as data source. Now I done with writing this data source configuration file. Now I will create one class inside this controller package. I will give the class name as employee controller. Click on finish. Inside this controller I will write one method. This method will return the string, and I will give the method name as insert. And in this class itself I will create the one variable for the JDBC template. And I will give @autowired. Now using this JDBC template I need to execute one query. Inside this I will write one query. See here, inside the insert method, using the JDBC template I am executing the query. I wrote the query as insert into employees, ID, name, age, salary. Values are ID is 102, name as Raj, and age is 26, and salary is 36,000. And then after execution of this line I need to return one statement, data inserted successfully. To get this message on the browser I need to give the @request mapping. And I will give the mapping as hello and save. Now see here, in this MySQL DB project I had one package called com.example.demo. Inside this package I had one class. That class contained the main method. After that I have created two packages. One is for the configuration. I gave the package name as com.example.demo.config. Inside this package I created one class by the name datasource_config.java. Inside this class I created 4 variables: username, password, URL and driver. Then for that variables I gave setters and getters methods, and then I created one method. I gave the method name as data source. Inside that method I created the HikaridataSource object. For that object I am setting the data source class name, JDBC URL, password and username. Then after that I am returning the HikaridataSource reference here. After that I created another method, datasource transaction manager. This method will return the datasource transaction manager object. Then after I created the JDBC template method, this method returns the JDBC template for us. This class is for configuring the data source. For these variables, I set the values inside this application.property files. Then after, inside this controller package, I created one class by the name employee controller, and I made this class as REST controller. Inside that class, I created one method. That method will execute one query to insert the data into the employees database, and this method will return the one successful message on the browser. Now I will run this project. Run as before running that, inside this application.property file, I will write the server port number, because Apache Tomcat server by default will run on the 8080 port, but if any task is running on that port, it will throw an exception. That's why I will configure the port number for different port. I gave this port number as server.port 8081. Now I will save this file and I will run this project. Run as Spring Boot app. See here our project is running and Tomcat initialized with the port number 8081. Now I will go to my browser. Now I will enter the URL as localhost 8081/hello. See here, I got the output. Data inserted successfully. Now I will go to my MySQL database. See here, before I inserted only 2 rows of data. Now I will refresh here. Another rows of data is got inserted. Now I done with connecting the MySQL database in Spring Boot application by configuring the data source config file. If you like this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you for watching. Have a nice day.